ASRock have been killing it this AMD CPU generation. Likewise, they've been also killing this AMD CPU generation, but that's beside the point. I've praised a lot of motherboards because of how good value they are, and if you want something that is extremely cheap but still has pretty much everything you care about, then there's also the ASRock B850 Pro-A, the subject of today's review, which will only cost you $170. What exactly do you get for that price? Well, let's go over it, shall we? Starting off with the power delivery for the CPU, it is rather competitive for the price with a 14+2+1 configuration rated at 80 amps. And despite being a more budget board, it still does come with two full 8 pins for CPU power. And even though the heatsink design for the VRM is not the most elaborate in the world, it still does the job just fine. Now, memory wise, they rate this thing at up to 8,000 megatransfers per second, but let's be honest, you probably won't be even getting RAM that's so fast in this economy. It would cost you literally your entire life's savings. So whatever other frequencies you are going to be running it at, it's going to be just fine. Then moving down to PC expansion, well, because we're dealing with a B850 board, the lanes are rather limited, but here's the quick rundown. The primary slot is, as you can expect, a Gen 5 16 laner, and you also get one additional PCIe slot below that, which is a Gen 4 one, and even though it's physically 16x, it has just 4 lanes. However, when it comes to storage, now here's where things get interesting, because despite it being a fairly budget board, you have a whopping 4 M.2 slots. 5 if you count the one for Wi-Fi, which I really don't, but still, that's a lot of storage for the price. Though, of course, because of the limitations of B850, the lane distribution can be a bit weird. The primary slot is PCIe Gen 5, then 2 below that are both PCIe Gen 4, and then the final one is just Gen 3. And to top it all off, you do have 4 SATA connectors. However, if the third M.2 slot is occupied, then the second PCIe slot will be disabled, and also the first or second SATA connectors are occupied, then the fourth already slow Gen 3 M.2 slot will become even slower as it drops down to just 2 lanes. So very much keep that in mind when you plan out where you're plugging everything in, otherwise you may end up with something not working or your storage literally being half the speed that it's supposed to be. You also get just a single M.2 heatsink right here, and it's a pretty thin one at that, though again it gets the job done, and on the PCIe Gen 4 SSD we didn't see anything approaching concerning temperatures whatsoever. In terms of other internal connectors, you get a combination of 7 different 4-pin fan headers, as well as 3 addressable and 1 non-addressable RGB connector. That's important to note because some guys like ASUS are completely ditching the old 4-pin non-addressable ones. However, for some legacy devices, it's still important to have that. In terms of the rear I/O, however, well, it is very competent for the price. Once again, it's completely bizarre how ASRock have become really these leaders in how much rear I/O you can pack into a motherboard. With 6 USB Gen 2 Type A ports, an additional 4 5GB per second Type A ports, and 2 Type C ports. However, they are very much on the slow side, with one of them being 10GB and the other being 5GB. You also get HDMI for integrated graphics, however no DisplayPort, 2.5GB Ethernet, which is a really nice touch, especially for the price, holes for mounting Wi-Fi antennas, which will cost you $10 extra normally, or you can always just install your own after the fact, and also only 3 audio jacks, no optical SPDIF, and all running off the step-down ALC 897 codec. Though, of course, for the people who care about the audio anyway, odds are you will be using something like a sound card or an external sound interface anyway, so it's not going to matter to most people. You may have noticed that the rear I/O plate is not attached. It's one of the very few accessories that comes in the box, including 2 SATA cables, a single M.2 screw, and also some cheap documentation, and that's it, accessory-wise. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to complain about it, given the highly competitive price. And it also puts many other ASRock motherboards in a really uncomfortable situation, given exactly how aggressive this one is with price, while still giving you pretty much everything you could care about. Pretty much the biggest downside is just the fact that it is B850, so you are somewhat limited when it comes to PCIe lanes, and you have to be very careful when installing everything because of those limitations, and because of it, odds are you won't be doing too much expansion in the future, even if you want to, so that's just something to keep in mind. But apart from that, I mean, it is a pretty good deal, so I mean, I kind of love complaining. It kind of keeps me alive and going, but I can't really complain about too much here, which is kind of annoying. So if you want to get it yourself, then the links to it will be down in the video description below, where you're also going to find a Patreon, because even a single $1 a month truly goes a long way. Plus, huge thanks to Gavin Burns, Jason Ray, Jelavronyak, Balash Vokup, another pseudonym, Exomna, and Shane Allcraft. But anyway, that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then remember to subscribe, like whatever, and I'll see you all in whatever I make next. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.